Let's see if I can make sense out of chaos. Actually, this is 25 years ago, maybe more. I had the same slide that I shared in many companies around the world, and one of the ones that I remember is that the manager's job is to make sense out of chaos, because the technology is changing, the customers are changing, all the phenomena in the world is changing so rapidly, so you have to make sense out of it. You cannot just focus on one thing and get out of the company, what to do. You have to be able to process multiple areas to make sense of chaos. But I'm putting myself in the same shoes because I have this piece of paper I developed. It took maybe 10 minutes in the middle of the night, and I want to make sense out of it. Because I thought I captured many variable information in one piece of paper. And each of them makes sense, but unless I can make sense out of the whole, in other words, synthesize the whole, I'm not be able to do a good job. And this is about living life, truthfully and sincerely. I'm laughing, and it's not the laughable matter. It's a serious matter, but it's kind of like a joke what I'm doing, but I want to give it a try. So let me start from how it happened. Last night I played a game of Go, which is a black and white stones playing each other. I've been doing this for the last 4 or 5 nights, and I've been winning every time I play the game on the internet. But last night, I lost it. And I was a bit upset, and I was trying to figure out what happened, and I could see how I made a mistake because I was trying to win. And when the time is running out and they say 5 seconds, 3 seconds, 2 seconds, and then you have to hit the next move. And that gives me a pressure, and I was rushing and not be able to see the whole picture. I was just focusing on one step and then this, but you just don't be able to get the whole of it if you just go through one step at a time and construct the whole. You have to make sense out of it. So that was the first thing. So that night, I was sleeping, but I was reflecting on the Saichi, Myokonin. And he's going through the process of repentance, turning into joy, of aligning himself with the law of nature or Amida Buddha, whatever the term you want to use. You can use the God. That if you align and connect to the God, you'll be okay. But if you are fighting on your own, figuring out what to do, you may be lost and you may have this repentance sense. And how do you deal with it? So in their case of Myokonin, they go through the process of chanting, sort of, or to basically say, I forgive myself for the compassion of Amida Buddha. So they tend to be not well educated in the sense of intellectual capability, but more genuine kind of people, and rural countries. But they have this sense of believing, and this Saichi is the one who have found himself in a very wonderful state of being, as I can tell. I studied a lot, and he left many poems, 6,000 of them, and many are available. Daisetz mentioned about it. But the one saying that I mentioned about Zangi, the repentance turned into joy, as much as he go through this Namo Amida Butsu. I forgive myself for the power of Amida Buddha. The same as the law of nature, because that's how everything is manifesting, and that's the power of Amida Buddha, and by connecting to that, you can find peace. So I was going through the Zangi to Kangi, repentance to joy. So in this case, a tiny bit, but of my curiosity of why I was upset, rushing, and lost the game, because I could have made a better move, but I was not in the right mind state. In other words, I was not looking at the whole picture, the balance, and not just the game, but my whole being is not balanced, because I was focused on the logic, but not the perception of the sense, making sense out of it. So when you're in the pressure, time constraint and so forth, then you rush in to make a decision, and you realize that, or I realized that the breathing may be faster, and maybe heart is pounding, and blood pressure may be high. And that's totally against what I've been working on in this spiritual pursuit. And you may say there's a gap, a huge gap, but to me it's not, because I also know, for example, here's a comment I left yesterday about Okamura-san talking about Daisetz, and her comment of him at one time was that she noticed that Daisetz, his body is so relaxed, no tenseness, and the breathing is quiet, undisturbed, as if anybody can hit him. That may not be the word that she used, but that indicated that he was in the pure being state, if I call it. It's not mind caught up, but I'm pretty sure that his mind was like an empty mind, quiet, calm, just breathing. And I can see that because I've gone through lots of meditation, vipassana, even awakening, and there's a point that you are into the zone, and the whole body is kind of like vibrating. I use the word waku-waku. And that's the state when you don't have much of the muscle, tightness. You feel the cells of the body functioning almost, vibrating, and the breathing is quiet, and the body is totally relaxed. And I believe that's the sense that we can live, even to the point of living a long life. Why? Because you're not stressed. Your stomach is not hurting because you're pushing your idea to do this, to do that, win this game, or go to this location and up there and do this and do that. And he's totally relaxed. And that's when you see the whole picture, not the small portion of it. So back to the case of the ego, the go play, I'm sure I was more concerned and heartbeat is higher and all that. So I reflected that. And that's the repentance on my part, because that evening I was disturbed. Why? I was peaceful for the last 4 or 5 games and winning, like breathe. But whatever happened, I made one wrong move, and that, with the constraint of the time, I was pressured and go through this will. So my breathing must be faster, and my heart rate may be changing, and you have to catch up on what to do. And it's just a game, but that's the good example of a tiny thing in life. If you lose the balance and connection to the root, then you get into this craziness. So when we come up with the idea in ego game or life, even in a very difficult situation, the way to process is like Saichi talking about him sucked into, I think that's the English translation, into the Amida, so that his mind is gone, sucked up by Amida Buddha, the compassion. Or different way of saying is that because of the nature is functioning without the mind disturbing into it, so the nature has the self-organizing force to prevail, which is like when you cut the finger, it heals by itself. If it's too deep, maybe not. But there's a way for the cells to work together to come up with a solution which mind cannot do. So we're not thinking, no mind, relaxed, muscles relaxed, and peaceful. You came up with great idea of, say, playing golf, or it could be a painting. And I'm sure Picasso had the sense of power coming out, as he says, painting is stronger than him. The other example I could think about was the Mozart. My understanding is that when he came up with the nice composition, he could see the whole score of how the melody went through. Tone, melody, rhythm, everything in few seconds. Also the scientists, they may come up with the idea while they are dreaming because you are in the alpha mode of the brainwave, not the beta wave, which is like a thinking mode, but more relaxed. Therefore, you can access to the memories deep in yourself, in your mind, from all the way back. Penrose had that Nobel Prize winner experimented with the electrode, and you could come up with a very primitive days of memories of when you are meeting with people, whatever, as if it is happening at the time. So where mind is caught up in something, you don't have access, so that the mind, limitation of mind within our human construct has to be loosened up, as if from the beta mode of wavelength, which is be up and down and up, do this, but rather relaxed and penetrating through into your unconscious part of it, where those reference, the ideas, can almost like start to dance on its own to connect to each other, to come up with a solution as if there's a wound. The cells, neurons, nerve system help each other to come up with a solution that's in the dream, or could be in playing the golf, or in painting or music, or investment, management, how to live a life. So it's not your power to come up with a wisdom or compassion to go with it. So when it happens, that's why I see it happening in Saichi, example of Myokonin, that he's got sucked up because of the Amida power, and his mind is taken away, and he comes to the joy from repentance. And that's how he bridged the gap, those two universes I talked about, the mind universe and the rest where everything is functioning, the nature's way. So there's no barrier. But if you're caught up in the mind, everything you see is within that small pieces of the cells and ideas in your mind of this move, that move, busy, and your whole body is disconnected. And so when it happens, as you get into the zone and connection of the whole being made, idea pops up. Idea pops up out of the mind. Basically, that's why we say, and I've said too, appreciating life. You're peaceful, not rushing. The answer comes from the other side, the other shore, or deep down in our consciousness, whatever you call it, or the nature's way prevailing, the miracles, source happening, and therefore you don't do it by yourself. It's not the self-power. It's the other power beyond your mind, and that's natural when Saichi says repentance passed through is a joy. There's waku-waku sense, and you feel like you're lucky. And that's also someone, he was the president, became the chairman of Toyota when I was visiting him in Kentucky. And he was talking about the Kaizen idea. And he was talking about the Kaizen idea come from, what was it in Japanese? Mukou kara kuru. Comes from the other side on its own. So you're not rushing, but idea pop up naturally. So that's the empowerment, cells joining to come up with a solution, not the mind and the top management and the brain to rush in the organization to get things done, not the top down, but rather bottom up, if you call it. Everything is connected. That's a Zen Kigen. The total utilization of potential within the organization, the people in the company, or within myself, mini-me, and mini-mini-me. So when it happens, actually there was one other example of the sculpture. Someone in Greek, when he finished the sculpture, he was surprised what happened because that was not what he did, but as if someone else, God or the unknown power, came about and completed. So he bowed and prayed to what happened. So those are some of the examples related to Go play and so forth, and idea pops up. And there's appreciation and the joy to go with it, a blissful sense. Or in a Buddhist term, if I may say this one too, the process is very simple. It's called the Shila Samadhi Panya. I said it somewhere else. It kind of related to plan, do, check, act process, where I said something somewhere else too. But the Shila Samadhi Panya is the right conduct. You live with a basic way of life, and you have the Samadhi, empty-minded, be aware of what's happening across, no boundary. If you have that, Panya, the insight will pop up. So it's just a practice of Shila Samadhi Panya all the time. So all the time what it means, I can also say that I mentioned about the 3 poisons of life, which in Buddhist term they often talk about, which is craving, aversion, and ignorance. 3 poisons. So in a simple sense, what we do is that if the mind is moving in a direction of, craving or avoidance, aversion, or ignorance, you want to realign yourself by going through the Shila Samadhi Panya. Then you find the way. So as much as I started the discussion with the playing Go, so far as we start to realize what's happening by being aware, that's why the awareness is important, then you come up with a solution, not by your self-power, but also from the other power, so to speak, or the laws of the universe starting to prevail on its own because there's no blockage. So what I can capture from last night, and also connecting to many of the things I talked about various videos, I could see the whole element working together to make our life simpler and easier without much effort by using our mind, but rather be calm and quiet. Be aware of what's happening. Because if we are not aware of it, you get into the trap. But if you get into the trap, you learn how to get out of the trap. That's the process. I'm sure we can do it. And the Zen meditation approach is one. And the Saichi example from Myokonin is the same. The words and approach focus on more of the mind or emotion or feeling. There may be some difference. But if we are interested, as much as Saichi had spent time to go through this and left lots of poems and stuff we can study, I'm sure we can go through the same thing. The habitual pattern may not be easy to overcome, but repetition, doing the right thing, like a Shila Samadhi Panya, be aware and avoid those 3 poisons, I'm sure we can have a very wonderful life. To the point that I think Saichi said the Rinju is over. His death is already gone. He's still alive, but he's alive in the heavenly world of Amida Buddha. Even though he may have, as his picture may point, the horn, 2 horns, which represent the repentance or the three poisons popping up. He still have those. But the root of the poisons, from his point of view, is taken. So the death of the mind already happened, but still pops up with the repentance or three poison and all of that. But he'll find a way. He has found a way. And he has left us interesting stories that we can study, learn, appreciate, practice. And that's what I think we can do. I plan to do it, and I did it last night, and I just wanted to share the outcome of it, whether it makes sense or not. From whatever I said, I don't know. But to me, there's something in there that we can build upon or connect to find the wisdom and compassion to live our life. Thank you. One thing I just remember, and I see it in here, is that depending upon the circumstance and the environment we live in, the passage may be easier or not so easy. So if you are in the wrong setting with bad influence from other people, we may want to figure out maybe relocating or changing the people to relate to, not to be arrogant about it, but find a way so that you don't get negative influence, but the positive influence. And for that reason, like Myokonin or Zen case too, the group of people who can share certain idea may benefit each other by sharing their experiences here and there. So hopefully I can practice it, and if there are people who are interested in sharing ideas, I think that might be encouraging, interesting, to check and balance better and find a way to live a life better. Thank you.